Okay, now the next method that we're going to talk about is the greatest common factor and the AC method slightly. But now the next example is going to cover both of this at the same time. Now let's look at that. Now this again is a trinomial. It has three terms, 1, 2, and 3. And it's a polynomial with the highest degree of 2. And it fits the general form ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is a quadratic equation. Now how do we factor this? The first thing that we should, whenever we see a problem like this, when there's a coefficient in front of x squared, the first thing that we need to ask ourselves is there anything that's common among the three terms? Alright? So for that, now let's break it down. 8x squared, I can write it as 2 times 4 x times x. 8x, I can write it again as 2 times 4 x, and the constant term 6, I can write it as 2 times 3. Now from here, we can see that 2 is common among all these three terms. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to factor out the 2. And so I'll be left with 4x squared minus 4x minus 3. Right? So what I just did here was I factored out a factor from these three terms. And this is what we call the greatest common factor methods. I just factored it, so it's factors. It's a product of two terms, 2 times this whole thing. It's a factor, and so it's the greatest common factor method. But this is not factored completely yet, and that's what we're going to do next using the AC method or the slide and divide method. Okay, so let's see how we could do that. But the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out the A and the C value from this quadratic equation. For that, we are going to compare this with the general form, ax squared plus bx plus c. From that, we should see that the A term is 4, and the C term is -3. Now the method says AC method, so we are going to multiply A and C to get -12. Alright? Now this is what we're going to do next. Alright, so what I just did in this method is I just drop out of 4 from the x squared term, and I slide my 4 into C, which is -12. The AC term was -12. So I just slide A into C. So that's the slide from our name. And I'll tell you what the divide is later on. Okay? Now what I just did here is I changed my trinomial into a general trinomial, that is with x squared with no coefficient. Right? Now the way we're going to solve this is exactly like how we solved our general trinomial in the first method. Okay? So that's 2. You can write 2 parentheses, right? X and x to get my x squared factor, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the constant term, which is -12, and we're going to look at the coefficient in front of the x term. Now 12, I can write it as factor 2 times 6, 3 times 4, and 12 times 1. Okay? Now the way we pick factor, just like I said earlier, we need to pick a factor in a way that the sum has to be -4 and the product has to be -12. I will see, would the 12 and 1 work? 12 times 1, 12 plus 1, 13, 12 minus 1, 11. We're not getting the -4 that we need, so this is not going to work. How about 3 and 4? Again, 3 plus 4, 7, 3 minus 4, -1. It's not -4. Not going to work. So how about 2 and 6? 2 minus 6, -4. 2 times -6 is -12, which is what we need here. So we are going to use 2 and 6. Okay? Now again, sign. Our coefficient in front of x is negative, so that tells us that the bigger term has to be negative. And now since the product is negative, we should have positive in front of 2. So this is how we factored this term, but we're not done yet though. We haven't still used the divide, and this is what we're going to do now. Okay, so what I did now was, since we slide A into C in our first step, I should recover that by dividing my factor by 4 in this step. Right, now I'm just going to make it more simpler. That's x plus 1/2 and x minus 3/2. Now this is factor, right? This is the factor form of that. Now this is completely factored.